Notes from my October 2024 reading of When My Name Was Keoko by Linda Sue Park. I'm filming this Tuesday, 22 October 2024. It is a 200-page book, including the author's note and the page with information about the author. It took me 2 days, 180 pages yesterday, Monday, and 20 pages today, Tuesday. I am Tanis Coralee Leonhardi, she, her, hers of Seattle, and I'm going to go through my book and reading notes for my October 2024 reading of the historical fiction book about the military invasion slash occupation of Korea by Japan during World War II, including restricting usage of the flag and not providing meat to Koreans. This is When My Name Was Keoko by Linda Sue Park, 2002 Sandpiper edition paperback, ISBN in the video description. So I started the book yesterday and then finished it today. So I started the book on Monday, 21 October 2024, and finished the book on Tuesday, 22 October 2024. And I already provided the page breakdown. Japan colonized a bunch of places before World War II. And then World War II was meant to kind of like put them back in their own land. And so I am including invasion in the video description, so that because some people might hear occupation go like Occupy Wall Street, and it's like, no, this was a real issue. It was a real military, people coming in and taking away all of their normal operations. So military occupation, very different. So military invasion, people might stand some chance of understanding. So putting that in there as well, even though the invasion was decades before World War II. This is a public library copy, and it's marked my third time reading this book, I think the second time this decade, and then I read it in a mother-daughter's book club with my mom. My sister was also in one. This is not one that they read. Sometimes we had overlap in books, but no. So far as I know, my sister has not actually read this. But I read back when it came out. So 2002, 2003. So yeah, there we go. Book notes including construction and design. It's a small, the cover did bend a little as I was reading it, but then as I leave it down to rest, it's slowly gone back down. It was full text pages, and the chapters are not, I appreciate it. It's like just reading a straight book. There's not a new page for each chapter. The chapters begin like this. So if you want to read a book with a bunch of text, this definitely is that. The breaks and paragraph are small. It's like a small to medium font and a 1 to 1.25 spacing. Content was, I very much enjoyed it. So it was moved at a clip. It was like maybe about 1 to 2 minutes per page. 2 minutes per page. Yeah. And I like the cover. Yes. Okay. It's a pretty, and it oscillates between the perspective of Sun-hee is her Korean name, and then Tae-yul is the Korean name. Sun-hee is the main character who is required to take a Japanese name. So then Keoko is the Japanese name. And then Tae-yul, and do I already forget? Nobuo? No. Yes. Kaneyama Nobuo, and they were Kims. Well, Kim means king or something like that. Okay. So the chapters are Tae-yul is the brother. Sun-hee is 9. She's the sister. She's the female. Okay. Reading notes. Well, as I go through my reading notes, I'm part Scottish. So since I'm reading about historical fiction means it's based on real events, and like the actual events, like some of the military stuff is like actually happened. So it's stuff that actually happened, but they put a fictional person in there. However, the author did base the book on her mom, her mom took the name Kaneyama Keoko when she was required to take a Japanese name. So it's not out of the blue. Right? It's her kind of piecing together her own family history. Here's the shortbread cookie, and I think it's like Walker's brand and made in Scotland or something like that, and I'm part Scottish. This is my sharing as I'm talking about other people's culture. Okay. I'm going to venture a guess my Duwamish ancestors were culturally most similar to Koreans, and my Lakota ancestors were culturally most similar to the Chinese. That's why they all got, not all, some got killed at Wounded Knee. People are like, they're all the same. They all look the same. They all act the same. Just come. And then, so in reading this book, I was like, kind of felt that back then, and I'm like, nah, stronger now. So then, if that's true culturally, this kind of resonates with my Duwamish in me. It's almost like the United States of America is copycatting the playbook of the Japanese during World War II. It's interesting to read that and really kind of see it culturally now in the United States of America. And then another note before I go through my flags. It's not really geisha culture when the women are actually Korean. Now is it? This is a reference to Japan taking Korean women without their consent and forcing them into such positions. Per the book, Japan initially invaded Korea about 1910. Yeah, they took what, over 100,000 Korean or non-Japanese women and put it into the pleasure industry. So it was like thinking of Memoirs of a Geisha, and the Japanese like burned everything that they did during World War II to make it look like, oh, we didn't do anything wrong. And then there were like Koreans that burned stuff, and like per the author's note, and so it's like, so technically geisha culture could have not been Japanese women, right? Putting two and two together there, but that might have been why Memoirs of a Geisha was sold as it was. It's based on real stuff, but it's like a lot of stuff is missing. So like details, they're like it's not like modern day where there's a bunch of information, although, you know, if the modern information isn't right and then goes missing, it's again pulling a Japan. That might be USA in the future. Okay, page 3. Korean history and language is not allowed to be taught in schools. Lessons are in Japanese. Not taught Korean history or language in Korea. It's like in the United States of America, us Native Americans, people talk about the history of the people who have come to the United States of America, but the history isn't the history of the Native Americans. All right, it's about people who've invaded and currently occupy the United States of America. All right, the Japanese. Okay. They talk about on page 10 something that actually happened at the Olympic Games where it was a Korean and they used a Japanese name and a Japanese flag. He wasn't allowed to use his Korean name or the Korean flag. Nowadays, that's Russia. Russia is denied the usage of their flag, and or they're required to compete under a different country. Like I think at the 2024 Summer Olympic Games, a Russian swimmer had to compete under the French flag. For France. Alright, so that's what happened to the Koreans still happens, only it's like Russia at the Olympic Games these days. And which is kind of sad because page 13, so that was page 10. Page 13, she says she's never seen a Korean flag. And she's like, I think like 10 or something. I'm like, yeah, that's true for Russia at the Olympic Games for people who are what? 8 years of age now? Or something like that. It's kind of sad. A reminder of the Olympic Games are not a clean competition. And this is a good reminder. They're just repeating their past transgressions. Page 15, she talks about the difference between Japanese and Korean names, and hers, the ones that she takes, the Japanese that she takes. In Spanish class, we were required to take Spanish names. Well, Spanish have colonized the United States of America rather well. In English class, my name Tanis is Irish. I'm part Irish. In English class, I was allowed to keep and use my Irish name, my real name. In Spanish class, I was not. I preferred the English to the Spanish. The Spanish lie. They're like, we're Native Americans. They're like, even if that's true, that's south of the border, that's not relevant for the United States of America. You are impersonating and you are impostoring and taking away our voices. You're worse than anybody to date for abusing that term. My personal perspective. Long live the English. They let me keep my name. Okay. This little Native American. Euro Native American. Okay. Page 29. That's why Japan invaded Korea. They were attacking China as well. And they were like, let's just take over Korea and turn them all into Japanese, even though they're not. The author explains later in the author's note that China actually provided sanctuary for Koreans who ran from the Japanese. So the Underground Railroad in Korea was to China. Yes. How are we doing on time? Run! Okay, like the marathon runner who was Korean and held the world record in Japan was like, just in the Olympic Games, just say he's Japanese. That's such something America would do, isn't it? Page 30, food. They got barley and then millet. They were denied meat and stuff like that. Kind of like the boycotts on Russia these days, where America has coerced a lot of entities or nudged them into not providing Russians with food as well. Page 32, it was page 31, 32. They're not all of their national tree, the tree of Sharon, are required to be replaced by cherry blossom trees. Remember, those are Japanese. They're colonized in Washington State as well, at the University of Washington. They took away the trees necessary for Native American wildlife to survive. Page 59. Household accountings. They call everybody out of the houses. If not, you can get hurt or taken away. And an old woman needs to be one of the first 5 in line every time because she only knows how to count to 5 in Japanese. Page 77. She thinks she makes a mistake, but it ends up being for the better. Sunhee, who takes the name Kyoko. Page 89. She's 13 in about 1942. It's a good shortbread cookie. She wonders if Korean thoughts if it's possible to write them in Japanese. It's a good multilingual perspective. I gave this book 100 out of 10. When the Japanese leave, they could learn Korean history and use their Korean names again. They weren't allowed to eat fish either, page 109 to 110. The boats were taken for the military. They get a little dried fish when the brother joins the Japanese military. Higa does. And then so that's 129, 138. The family gets fish as well after he joins the military. So if they join the Japanese military, they get food. Before he goes on a kamikaze mission, page 159, he's allowed to have meat. For the first time in a very long time. Page 163. It says, waiting, nothing makes time go slower than waiting. It's an excellent perspective. That's a quote. 163. 165. A sword is provided to the family of the kamikaze pilot. Page 190. They're allowed to have Korean flags again, but they don't have a Korean flag. They all got taken or burned. So she has to sew one. In conclusion, marked full book, number 54 for me for the 2024 year. Give it like 100 out of 5, honestly.